Okay, so we've gone around and I've just sanded off literally with the sanding sponge and then the shining sponge as well, just to take off some of that. We're going to redo all these seams again, but it just gives us down so we can have a look, you know, of how it actually is. So we sanded up around the tail area down here again. Same thing, literally just right the way over it with both types. Then the polishing all over there. Now we've still got a few little glue marks down there, but we're going to do something in a moment to show you that. Same with these wing ones. We've literally gone around, and you might be able to see, it's a bit big for showing, but we have got a tiny little bit of filler down there, so we've left that in. You haven't sanded it back so it's all gone, because it gives us the right profile to the edge. Now this wing is a little bit big, and when we get it on here, it does make it very, very cumbersome. So I'm going to put it on one of the last things to go on, just so it's easier to handle around the desk without things bending round. So what we want to do now is pop a few little rescribes back in. Now, obviously, normally we would use these types of guys. So we've got a pea cutter, okay, and this is the trumpeter little one. It's almost disposable. You can't change the blades on these, but the thing is, it's very, very thin and it's great for getting into little tight areas. The other thing I do like using is a razor saw. Now, I used to use a blade on a knife. So what would happen is, if you've got a leading edge on here, you would place it in the panel line like so, and then literally wrap it round, then follow it around afterwards. Recently though, I've been sort of playing with new techniques and things like that, and what I've actually been doing, before I bring you closer, the trouble with this wing, it's halfway down my side of me. Okay, but what we've actually been doing now is we come in, place the razor saw, I'm trying to do it so you can see it as well. So you place the razor saw on the top with the fine teeth, okay, and we place it in the panel line, okay, and we pull down and pull around, okay, and all we do is two little passes. Now we're not carving, we're not cutting, we're literally just dragging it round, and then you flip over the other side, okay, and that way, I don't know how well you'll be able to see this at all, but we've got the leading edge now on there really nicely. But I find it easier because if you're using a knife, you have to go around with a pea cutter afterwards, okay, and that's when it can be a little bit troublesome because you tend to go off gear. But also using the blade, because you have your finger down the side here, you rest your finger up to where it is, pop the blade in and drag it round. And that's how I've always done leading edges, normally with knives, but now I like to use a razor saw because it gives you just about the right type of dent in there. Don't try and do it like this where you place the blade under and curl it around, because you're going to go off. So what you want to do is rotate it, place your finger as a guide, and literally just drag it backwards around, and you should end up with a perfect rounded blade. And also, if you've got a position where the panel line is a little soft, shall we say, can't talk and think at the same time, then obviously doing something like this, you can just open them up on a nice curved surface. Now the great thing about doing this is that it's a lot more safe, because you're not, you know, as soon as you stop doing anything, it stops. It's not like if you're using a pea cutter, you carry on round. But say, just using this little guy here does give you a very nice area. One thing I have noticed is we've actually got a panel line running down through the wing section here. Now the thing is, I think it's rather more of a mould line than it actually is the actual panel line itself, because it's not on the bottom and comes across, but the thing is, it's like a step, so we're going to have to sand that out very, very gently. Again, it's only a hairline area, so it might be one of those ones you don't want to really worry about. So we've done that one. Certainly we'll do exactly the same with the blade here on the tail as well, because we've got obviously panel lines wrapping right round, and we've obviously got them down here. The other area you can do them is on flat areas like up here. So what you can do, you can just place your blade in, finger up against the side, okay, make sure you're in the right panel, and literally just go across. Now somebody asked about going through various putties and things. Sorry, I don't think you actually saw that. Let me do another one. Well, this is a way to get around it, because you're causing equal pressure. So you can just literally go over just like this. And then obviously, because you've got a line in there now, if you do want to come along with your pea cutter, you've got something for it to follow. So say, usual thing, if you're dealing with putties and things like that, just line this up. Don't push down, just lightly scratch across the top and let the weight of the pea cutter do all the work. Don't try and force it, don't drag it. You're better off to make 20 or 30 little passes than one heavy one that goes wrong. So we're just working our way across there. We've got one down the front here, and this one I made a bit of a mess of, to be honest, because I had a band holding this down and the band leaked extra thin over it, so what it's caused is quite a nasty molten job right the way over. But that's those done just like that. So obviously we've got a few down the bottom to do as well and take care of. Some of them are easy open up jobs. We've got filler dust just down in here, so we want to clean that out. So you can literally just drag your blade right the way through it and just increase the depth, perhaps if they've been sanded a little bit. It's very easy, just like so. And so I've got lots of scratches down in here, which we need to take care of, because that's because I used a coarse sanding stick. But again, you know, you can get in here with your blade and very, very lightly either use the razor saw and literally just make a carve a tiny little line, because this is all filler. You can do it just like that. It's one of those things you need the wash to go on there to see it afterwards, but it is an easy way. Don't worry about too much down these areas down in here, because obviously we're going to have the actual sponsons are going to wrap around there. We're going to have filler and everything else. So that's those. So I'm going to carry on going around with those. At the same time as well, we've got the nose section here. Another area you could put more weight in it, but again, it's not a particularly nice join onto the end here, so it's going to need a little bit of filler and stuff, so we might as well just glue that on now, and then once that's on we can come round and fill and take care of all the joins and nasties with this one. So we'll just pop the nose on, give it a wiggle, centre it up as best as you can. Once you're on like that, we can come in with a little bit more extra thin and let the capillary action do all the work. So we're just going to nudge this over just a fraction. There's the nose on like that. Okay, last thing before we have a quick break to sort of clear away and move forward is the glass work. Now, we spoke about this before when we showed you. The glass work is very clear and very easily done. I prefer to use Tamiya tape than going around and using other masking tapes, and certainly purpose-bought masks. I've done all the others, so we'll just show you in this one. What I do is overlay the entire window area, okay? Don't just do around there. If you hold this up to light, I don't know how well this will work, probably not at all, okay, but that isn't going to happen. But what happens is you can see the actual step of the window right the way through it. So what we do is hold it up to the light. So I have to do this one of those things to hold it up. You can see the panel, okay, and we just drag the blade through and just follow the panel lines as you see them. And what I can try and do is perhaps show you a little bit here, but this is how I do it. Okay, so you can sort of see it, no problem at all, and then just blade follows through. And just make sure you get to all those corners, because if you haven't got the corners cut, when it comes to peeling off and things like that, you can have a real problem. And just angle it so you can see where the panel line is running. So in theory, when we come to this bit where we unpeel, you are left with those panels in place just like that. And it's one of those things, you just take your time, cut them round, okay? Just spend time with it, don't rush through it. Now the thing is, obviously we've got a lot of dust on the inside here. So we're just going to blow that out. You're not going to see the inside instrument panel as it calls out for to be glued in here. If you want to do it, you can, but you won't see it in a million years. So all we're going to do is a quick test fit and poke it up. Now you'll see here I made a bit of a faux pas when I was poking around in here. You might see we've got a crack down in here. I'm going to have to fill that and everything else. And obviously we've got clear stuff with it, near it and everything else. So I'll show you a little trick about that. But in the meantime, we're going to use crystal clear, okay, as our fix to hold it in. Don't put extra thin or anything in here because you're going to end up with fogging quite close because of the areas you're doing. Obviously you want to clean out the inside of all the glass to make sure it's all clean. And then what we'll do, we're just going to grab a cocktail stick or a toothpick, okay, and we're just going to run crystal clear all around the areas. So literally just rotating the cocktail stick as you move around the glass area, so you leave a track of it on. So that's that one done. Okay, then we just got the rear area. Now the great thing about this, if you do end up and you do go overboard and it does end up putting down too much or squishing onto the inside of the glass where obviously you can't wipe it away, you shouldn't have a problem, because obviously you can just get it off and it'll dry totally clear. What you can't get up, it'll just dry clear. Alright, so that's that. So then all we're going to do is literally just line this up, okay, and then square it up and then just push it into place, just like so. Now, two options with this: you can either tape it to hold it into position, or you can pop a rubber band with it, but just make sure the corners down each side are in the correct location, okay, and they're the important ones. We can do a little bit of filler, but obviously we want it to be, if we can, as neat as possible in those areas. So what I'm going to do is just literally try and pop a band on it just to hold it back there. So we just got a band, and my plan is to hook it underneath the two little sponson areas there, okay, and have it ripped in just like that. And then cocktail stick, wrong one, Q-tip or cotton bud, okay, and just wipe off the excess, especially off the plastic, because this stuff doesn't sand particularly well. All it'll do is roll up on itself. So what you're trying to do is make a far nicer join out of it. Alright, just in those, and then when you've got a little gap, like perhaps got a small gap down the bottom here, all we're going to do is pop along with more crystal clear. Just for the moment, because all this is doing is sealing up between the two. And then what we'll try and do is do a little bit of backfilling. So we've just got quite a bit of glue around the front like that, and then wet cotton bud, Q-tip. Okay, what we're going to try and do is just wipe it in to the gap. Okay, then just clean up all the excess around. Just like so. Still got this small gap, as I say, we'll take care of that. So we're just going to leave that now, just to go off, okay? So I'm going to carry on then and go around and do this saw job for doing all these joins, taking care of all the panel lines on there, everything else like that. Then we can get it going on the engine and the sponsons on the side. Okay, so here we are at the undercarriage stage. Now it looks quite complicated in the instructions, and when you see it there, it looks quite straightforward, but trust me, it's not. First of all, you can't put this down anywhere, because if you put it down without some sponges or something to protect it, the gear comes up. So make sure you've got something down, otherwise, you said, it will just pull it all the way up. Now try and stay with me on this one, because it gets a little bit complicated, because although the instructions tell you how it all goes together, if you do it in the wrong order, it's a bit of a problem, hence whilst I've done one already. So what we've actually got is the main gear structures. Okay, those two are done and glued together. I've cleaned up all the parts that we actually need. So it probably would have been easier for me to do the other side to show you, but if we bring you in a little bit closer, we can hopefully show you what we mean here. Let me just bring the camera up. Okay, so you've actually got lots of little retaining bars, okay, and things like that for putting this wire on. So the first thing to go on is these bits here. Now these are the actual bulkheads for the areas, so we just pop a bit of glue just to hold those in place. So the one with the out the hole goes to the rear. Okay, and we'll just give that touch of glue. Okay, and then settle that one down. Okay, and then same again for the front. Now this is the one with the hole in it as well. Okay, so the detail faces back towards you into the bay itself, and then it actually goes down in here to obviously glue into the support just like so. Okay, and that we can do a little bit of super glue and pull it up into shape and everything else. Now the next thing that we want to do is glue these two in here. So put a drop of glue in each of these holes here. The solid one, just remembering, goes to the rear. But before putting those on, he says, trying to remember how he did it now, you've got to get them into this section in here, into this hole here. So it's easier to do it now, because it can be a little bit fiddly just to get those in. So if you pop them in first and then glue it. Okay, and then as you're doing it, you've got a small hole to the side here, at the top here, this one up here. That is where one of these little retaining bars goes into for the suspension, and it's on a sort of downward angle, okay? And it should hopefully fit in there. Just needs a bit of trimming, just needs a bit of it. It's on a joint, so if you haven't cleaned the part properly, it won't like going in. It doesn't like going in particularly. So what we'll do, we'll put a little bit of glue on there and we'll help it all melt in. There we go, that's helping that in. Because what this actually does, acts as a side strut coming out. Now it's probably easier to put the front one in first. So what we'll do, we'll just pop a bit of glue into this hole down here, a bit of glue into this top one up here, and then obviously the bar we did coming out goes into this front one. Alright, and then so it needs to slip up into there. That bar's got to come forward. That bar goes in there in the hole, and then that one goes in like so. Okay, so then between all three of them, it sits in there just like that. So you're saying that's why you need your pad here. Then we'll just do the same with the rear one. And this is where a bit of super glue and kicker will come in very handy for this in a moment. Goes in. And we'll just give this a bit of a sand and make it fit a bit easier. So we just sand this in, give it more of an edge. Touch of glue. The wrong side might even help. Okay, then this one, same again, is going to fit into the rear. So we just do a tiny bit of glue down in the hole there and into the back one at the top. But the thing is, if you put the rear ones in first, it really is a testing fit, okay, because this then should slide straight in there. And then this part here at the top goes in, there's a hole at the top and it goes up in there. Okay, just like so. So what you can do is just have a look down it and make sure they're level with each other as you go down. All right, once they're on, then it's just a case of taking a bit of glue to the front, to this back area and across, and you've got these bars. It should fit in just like this. And then down. And as I say, this one comes up. This is where your glue comes in handy, because what you can do, come along, tiny bit of super glue, go onto the top, spray kicker, and then lift and hold it and give that a blow, and then that glue, super glue there, holds this top part into position, and then it lines it all up with all the others. So it's quite handy having that one. Okay, same for the rear ones as well. So just goes in the back just like that. So you've got two coming forward and then two from underneath as well going up in there. And as I say, if you use a tiny bit of super glue and just dot it on these connections, that should give you your right adjustment and hold it at the right angle. Without them, you can have one that's too low, kinked out, kinked in, and all the rest of it. But when they're in there, you can see them. It's quite a complicated setup of how those go in, but once they're in, they actually do look very nice. But again, you can't put it down, because if you put it down, you end up with the gear splaying out and all the rest of it. So just need it on there. A couple of these I found at the back work very well, just to hold that into position. Same time, you might be able to see just down here at the nose, we've filled that little gap. There we go, goes the camera. So we filled that in, a little bit of Mr. Surfacer, literally we just come along, and then all we've actually done with that one is just paintbrush it in there. As soon as that's dry, we'll use a little bit of thinners and we'll remove it that way without sanding it and obviously destroying detail or scratching plastic and things like that. But it needs to totally go off before we can get in there with some cellulose thinners, lacquer thinners, and get rid of that. So I'm going to let this gear area dry, work on the main gear. I've got these two escape hatches that have got to go on the rear, so I'm just going to place those in, and then we can get the actual housing, gear housing all sorted out, tucked in, get all those made up and put on, and we can move on with the engines. Okay, so as you can probably see, we've got that side pod put on. Now this is the complicated one because it has a rear section and a front depending on the version you're doing, so make sure you have it, because obviously this is the side that has the aerial refueling drogue chute section if you're doing the F-type. As I say, we're doing the earlier one, so it doesn't have it. Thing with it is, as we've got it over here, it does take a little bit of juggling to get it all around. Now as you can see, I've still got big gaps down here and everything else, but everything seems to line up. So it's one of those things with this interior kit and how this belly plate goes in. It all seems to fit, but you have big gaps. So we sort of assume it's all okay. So all that lovely detail work, if you'd painted it all, is this where you're about to lose it all. So this literally comes along and will fit on the top. Now again, when you pop this on to fit it on, it's got huge gaps and everything else. This top curved area of the back bit just doesn't seem to want to fit. So what we're going to have to do is reshape this and sand it down, just as I had to do on the other side and everything else like that. So if we just use quite a coarse skinny stick, we can then start to bring down it time after time, just dry fitting, seeing how it goes, do a little bit more. So we just try it a little bit. So okay, with a little bit of fitting, so we just sanded this down. To be honest, we've taken the little strut for the gear door off. We can just replace that, it's an easy job. So we just sanded that off. Front one is still on. So what we've done, we've taken the tab out, the actual locating tab, and then when we come in now, it fits very nicely. So what we want to do is make sure the top seam is the good seam, because obviously that's where everyone's going to see, and if we've got any small little joins and fills, we can do them afterwards. So we're happy how that is at the top. Okay, taking liquid cement. Okay, just going to brush medium amount. Don't go overboard on there because otherwise it takes too long to dry. Just on those areas. Okay, then we're just going to do this under seam and just down here a little. So we can just pinch that in. Make sure that all sits nicely. And then, say we've got this front one, we need to just pinch in a little bit. But what we'll do is we'll wait for this top one to be dry before we come in. And what we'll do is we'll come along with a little bit of Mr. Surfacer and tidy up all these joins. Got a tiny little gap appearing just down the back. So that one sits there, and we'll do the same as we did for the other side. We'll just pop a peg on there just to hold that all in nicely. Alright, so we're going to let that bit dry off. Trying to glue there, a little bit just around the back. Okay, and there we go, that's the sponsons on. Now the front, we've just got this part that goes on, but we'll do that because what we're going to have to do is just tweak it together a little bit, but we'll let the rear dry before we get to that stage. So that's that bit. So if we just carefully place that out of the way a second. Okay, now the other thing we can get on with, dust everywhere, is the engines. Quite complicated how they go together for such a small part, but basically, in a nutshell, you have the exhausts are two parts which are going to make up the tube. He says, having a bit of trouble getting them together. Okay, so we'll hold them extra thin as always, right the way over, inside as well. We'll clean those up afterwards. Pinch them together. Okay, then actually what you actually have is your inner section here. So if we just put a bit of glue on the inside, just bring you in a little bit, just like so, and then this exhaust stack goes onto the inside so it fits in like this. Alright, then all you have is an inner part, which will just put a drop of glue just to sit it in there. So the exhaust stack comes down and out the back, just in there. Then on the other side we have the other part, so I'm just going to put a bit of glue in there, and then you just two halves together. Okay, make sure the exhaust is obviously coming out the bottom. And we can just glue the inside, and if you glue it from the inside like this, you don't have all the mess on the outside. And I've got a little tiny pinch end at the end here, so we just pinch those together just like that, just to help glue that in, so it won't take long. Now it's quite complex how this all goes together, because you actually have multiple parts in the front. First thing we need to do is we're just going to glue in the locating peg, or the shaft as it would be for the props to go on. That'll just make those easier, so they'll fit on better. Then actually what we have is a under section, belly plate, the first part of it, which sits in like this. Now what we're going to do is put it all in loose, and then we can go around and push and nudge it all in. But because this is in about 20 bits, it makes it somewhat complicated So that's that one in. Then there's a front end part as well. That sits on the front, which has got the little intake on. Little scoop. Alright, now that's all on. So I found if you get it all together like that and then give it a nudge rearward. Okay, then I put this section in next, although it's personal choice. Okay, so we've just got the front area to go on. There's tab has got a bigger and a smaller part, and what you can do is once it's sat in there, you can squeeze it all together to join it all up. Okay, so you've got all the underside done, just like so, and then there's a top part to go on, which I haven't removed from the sprue, but basically that's a straightforward, as you can imagine. Okay, I'll clean this up afterwards in a minute, but that basically sits on the top, which will complete your engine just like that. Again, detailers, you could do a lovely job on this because you could put an engine in it with all it open. Now, seeing this engine open at a couple of air shows actually opens up like flower petals, which is quite a nice way of doing it. When you're done, it will be just like this. This is the engine done. I only did this one a few minutes ago. All right, so then comes the clever bit of actually marrying it up to the wing. First of all, work out which engine it is, left or right. So it's going to be this one. The tabs, locating tabs, are quite large on this, so you do need to give them a bit of a squeeze. And I did find this front part, sort of put your nail in and make sure it gets in behind. There we go, otherwise it won't go. And it just fits on the wing, as simple and as easy as that. Now, it's quite a good line down there, but this front bit is a little bit nasty. But as I said, what we'll do is we'll get this all together and we'll get the other engine on. Before we join it to the fuselage, we will go around, because this way we can get in and take care of any seams on the inside without the fuselage interfering and everything else like that. So we'll let those bits dry. We'll get the front part on the undercarriage on there as well. We've got this little scoop which has got to go on the front of there. We'll get the other engine fixed up and everything else. We'll get them mounted onto here. Then we're going to go around with some thin putty, things like that, to make sure we've got nice and do any rescribing before we bring it all together.